The research station floated high above the green clouds of the distant planet. It was a quiet outpost, built to study new life forms and offer them care when injured or sick. The walls of the station were clean and bright, humming softly with the sound of machines. Most days passed calmly, with scientists recording data, healers working with gentle hands, and engineers keeping the structure safe. But on this day, everything changed when the alien dragon arrived. The alarm rang across the docking bay. A transport craft was returning from the surface of the planet, carrying something large inside its cargo hold. Workers rushed to prepare the landing area. The heavy doors opened, releasing a gust of warm air mixed with the scent of burned ozone and dust. A giant shape lay inside, curled and trembling. Its scales shone with shifting colors, like a river reflecting sunlight. It was not only large, it was alive with power, and yet it looked weak and broken. The alien dragon had been caught in one of the violent storms that swept across its home world. Winds stronger than metal had torn through forests and mountains, leaving many creatures hurt. The research team had been trying to help smaller beings, but never before had they encountered one so huge, so rare, and so clearly intelligent. The workers whispered nervously as the dragon's chest rose and fell. Each breath rattled like thunder. Its long wings were folded tight, but scars and burns marked them from the storm. Its eyes were closed, but even in sleep, its body twitched as if haunted by nightmares. The people kept their distance, afraid of what would happen when it woke. Among them stood Myra, a caretaker known for her calm nature. She was not a scientist or a soldier but a healer of minds and hearts. She had chosen this station because she believed that caring for alien beings was not only about medicine, but also about kindness. Myra was smaller than the rest of the crew, with simple clothes and a soft voice, but she carried herself with quiet strength. She stepped closer to the dragon while others held back. The size of the creature made her feel like an ant beside a mountain. Its claws were longer than her arms, and its teeth could have torn through metal. But when she looked at its trembling body, she saw not a monster, but a living being lost in fear and pain. The medical staff rolled in large scanners and equipment. Machines hummed as they measured the dragon's heartbeats and oxygen levels. The readings were uneven. The dragon's pulse raced like it was trapped in panic even while unconscious. Its breathing came in shallow bursts, filling the air with sharp sounds. The team began to speak in low voices, unsure how to help such a massive patient. "We must sedate it the moment it wakes," one of the doctors said. "It could be dangerous." "But if we use too much, we could harm it," another replied. Myra listened, but her eyes never left the dragon. She could sense its struggle, even without words. The flickering of its scales was not only random light. The patterns shifted quickly, as if the creature's body was betraying its emotions. Fear moved across its form like storm clouds racing across the sky. The transport crew explained how they had found it half buried in mud after the storm. The dragon had tried to fly, but strong winds had thrown it into the ground. It had fought hard to breathe, and when the team discovered it, the dragon had almost collapsed from exhaustion. Bringing it aboard had been a risk, but they knew leaving it behind would mean its end. Now the fate of the dragon rested inside the bright walls of the station. Everyone was tense, waiting for the moment it would open its eyes. The air seemed heavy with silence. Even the usual hum of machines felt distant, as if the station itself was holding its breath. Myra walked slowly around the creature, her steps careful and quiet. She noticed how the dragon's tail curled in a tight knot, how its claws dug lightly into the floor, and how its chest shuddered with each breath. All these signs spoke of fear, not rage. She thought of animals back on Earth, how they often panicked when trapped in cages or strange places. This dragon was no different. It was powerful, yes, but it was also frightened. One of the younger workers asked in a nervous voice, "Why would such a great being be afraid?" Myra answered softly, "Because even the strongest can fear what they do not understand. And this place, this station, is unknown to it. The others looked at her but said nothing. They continued their work, preparing medicine, checking readings, and keeping their distance. Myra, however, stayed near the dragon's head. She wanted to be there when it finally woke. The lights above flickered for a moment as the station adjusted its power. The dragon stirred, shifting slightly, and a deep sound rumbled from its chest. The crew froze. The sound was not loud, but it was enough to remind everyone of the strength locked within that body. Myra placed her hand gently on the railing beside her, steadying herself. She did not know what the dragon would do when it opened its eyes, but she was ready. She believed that fear could be met with calm, and panic could be softened with care. The giant chest rose once more, and the dragon's eyelids trembled. A flash of deep golden light appeared beneath them. The creature was waking. And with that moment, the true challenge for Myra and the humans of the station was about to begin. The dragon's golden eyes opened. At first, they were unfocused, clouded with the heavy weight of exhaustion. But within moments, the brightness in them sharpened, and the creature became fully aware of its surroundings. Its head lifted slowly, scales scraping against the smooth metal floor. The humming machines and bright white lights of the station surrounded it, a world completely alien to its senses. The first sound it made was a low, trembling growl. The walls seemed to vibrate with it. The crew of humans stepped back quickly, some raising their tools and others reaching for tranquilizers. The dragon's chest rose and fell in fast, uneven breaths. Its wings twitched, striking the walls with heavy thuds. Every motion was sharp, every sound wild. The beast was not attacking, but it was lost in fear, and its fear filled the room like a storm. Myra stood her ground. She had expected panic, but the power of it was greater than she had imagined. The dragon's tail lashed against the metal floor, leaving marks. Its claws opened and closed, scraping deep lines across the surface. The golden eyes darted from wall to wall, from human to human, searching for escape. The humans around Myra shouted in alarm. "Sedate it now before it destroys everything." "No, wait, the dosage is not safe for its size. It will break through the station walls if we delay." The arguments rose as loud as the noise of the machines, adding more chaos to the scene. The dragon's breathing grew harsher, its body trembling with every sound. Its scales shifted colors rapidly, from deep red to bright silver, a storm of emotion flashing across its skin. It pressed its wings against the walls as if trapped in a cage, and the fear inside it turned into wild movements. It reared its head back and roared. The sound was not one of anger but of panic so deep it pierced the hearts of the crew. Lights flickered, panels shook, and the roar echoed down the halls of the station. Some workers dropped their tools and ran for safety. Others froze, unable to move in the presence of such raw force. Myra, however, did not run. She took a single step forward, her eyes locked on the dragon. She saw more than its power. She saw the tight curl of its tail, the desperate widening of its eyes, and the uneven rhythm of its chest. This was not rage. This was a living being that did not understand where it was. The dragon struck its wing against a scanner, sending sparks flying. The alarms blared loudly in response. Red warning lights filled the room, turning the calm white glow into a storm of flashing color. The sound and light only made the panic worse. The dragon twisted violently, its claws tearing into the floor, its tail smashing into the wall. The humans closest to it stumbled back, shielding themselves. "Shut down the alarms," Myra ordered firmly. Her voice cut through the noise. "The alarms are making it worse." The technicians obeyed quickly, silencing the shrieking sounds. The red lights dimmed, returning the room to a softer glow. But the dragon was still trembling, its body tense as if ready to fight or flee. Its golden eyes landed on Myra now. For a moment, she felt the weight of its gaze. It could end her life in a single strike if it chose. Yet she did not move away. Myra slowly raised her hands to show she carried no weapon. She kept her voice calm and steady as she spoke. "You are safe here. No one will harm you." The dragon could not understand her words, not in the way humans understood each other. But it could hear the tone of her voice. Her calmness flowed against the chaos, a soft sound within the storm. The humans behind her whispered in disbelief. She is speaking to it as if it were a child. But Myra paid no attention to them. Her eyes stayed on the dragon. Its chest still rose and fell quickly, but the rhythm slowed just enough for her to notice. The creature tilted its head, the sharp edges of its horns glinting under the lights. It gave another rumbling growl, softer this time, filled with confusion rather than wild fear. Its tail flicked from side to side, less violently than before. Myra knew she had to keep its attention, to show that she was no threat. The dragon shifted its wings, still tense but no longer smashing against the walls. The crew held their breath, waiting for what would happen next. Some had tranquilizer darts ready in shaking hands. Others clutched the railings, unsure if they should run or stay. Myra felt the pressure of their fear behind her, but she kept her focus on the being before her. She could not let her own fear show. She thought of the dragon not as a monster but as a frightened soul trapped in a strange place. "You are not alone," she whispered, her voice steady, carrying across the wide chamber. The golden eyes blinked slowly, as if trying to understand. The flickering of the scales slowed, their colors calming slightly from harsh reds to softer blues and greens. The panic had not ended, but a fragile pause had begun. Myra knew this was only the beginning. The dragon was still afraid, still trapped in its own storm, but she had managed to stop the worst of its wild thrashing. The next steps would decide if they could reach its heart, or if its fear would rise again. The dragon's golden eyes glowed faintly in the dim light of the chamber. Its body was still trembling, wings pressed tight against the walls, tail moving in nervous waves across the floor. The sharp marks it had carved into the metal surface shone as reminders of its strength and fear. The humans kept their distance, whispering among themselves, their voices filled with worry and doubt. Myra stood at the center of it all, calm in the middle of the storm. She had stopped the alarms, silenced the shouting, and given the dragon a chance to breathe. But she knew this was not enough. Its fear was still there, heavy and unbroken, like thunder waiting to strike again. She could see it in the fast rhythm of its chest, in the way its golden eyes searched for escape. If they tried to sedate it now, they risked harming it. If they left it alone, the fear might consume it until it hurt itself or destroyed the chamber. The commander of the station stepped forward. He was a tall man with sharp eyes, dressed in a dark uniform. His voice was steady, but it carried impatience. "Caretaker Myra, this cannot continue. We must sedate it before it causes more damage. It is too dangerous to handle this way." Myra turned her head toward him and shook her head. "Sedation will not remove its fear. It will only wake again in the same panic. We must show it that it is safe." "Safe," the commander repeated with disbelief. "It is a beast. It does not understand safety. It only understands force." At those words, the dragon let out another low growl. Its scales flashed with a sudden burst of harsh red, as if it felt the meaning behind the commander's tone. Myra quickly lifted her hand, urging silence. She stepped closer to the dragon, her voice soft but firm. "It understands more than you think," she said. "Look at its eyes. This is not rage. This is fear. We cannot fight fear with force. We must answer it with calm." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Some shook their heads, others lowered their weapons slightly. The commander frowned but said no more. The responsibility now rested on Myra. She looked back at the dragon, studying its body. She thought of the animals she had cared for on Earth. Horses that panicked in storms, birds that beat their wings against cages, children who cried when left in unfamiliar places. All of them had one thing in common: they needed comfort, not control. Myra knew what she had to do. She could not speak the dragon's language, but humans had another way of reaching hearts across barriers. A way older than machines, older than science. She took a deep breath, steadying her voice, and began to sing. The first notes were soft, barely more than a whisper. The sound floated across the chamber, simple and slow. It was not a song with words, only a melody, rising and falling like waves. Her voice carried warmth and steadiness, free of fear, free of command. It was the kind of song that mothers sang to calm children, the kind of sound that carried peace even in silence. The dragon's body shifted. Its eyes widened slightly, golden light flickering with surprise. The rumble in its chest stopped for a moment, as if it was listening. The humans in the room fell silent, staring in disbelief. No one had expected such an answer. Some of them felt their own hearts calm as the notes filled the air. The cold, metallic chamber seemed softer now, touched by a human voice. Myra continued, her eyes never leaving the dragon. She kept her hands open and relaxed, her body still. She let the melody flow gently, not forcing it, not rushing it. The dragon's breathing began to slow. The harsh flickering of its scales softened into calmer colors, blues and greens spreading across its body. Its wings loosened slightly, no longer pressed so hard against the walls. The tail that had been lashing in wild fear now lay more still, curling gently around its body. The golden eyes blinked once, twice, slowly. The dragon tilted its head, its gaze fixed on the small human who dared to sing to it. Myra's voice grew a little stronger, carrying the melody across the chamber. She could feel her own heart beating, but she did not let the rhythm of fear touch her song. She thought of gentle rivers, of quiet nights on earth, of the calmness she had once given to frightened children. She poured all of that into her voice. The dragon lowered its head slightly, bringing its glowing eyes closer to her. It did not roar, it did not strike. It simply listened. The crew watched in awe, frozen in the moment. One of the younger technicians whispered, "It understands her." The commander, who had once demanded sedation, stood silent now. His eyes narrowed as he watched the giant creature relax under the power of something as simple as a song. Myra sang on, her voice steady, her heart focused. In that moment, she was no longer just a caretaker. She was a bridge between two worlds, using the most human gift of all. When she finally let the last note fade into silence, the chamber remained still. The dragon gave a slow, deep breath, its chest rising and falling in calm rhythm. Its scales glowed softly, no longer flashing with panic. The golden eyes closed halfway, not in fear but in a kind of rest. It was not yet safe, not yet healed, but the storm of panic had lessened. Myra stood quietly, her voice silent now, but her presence strong. She had given the dragon an answer no machine or weapon could offer. She had shown it a path to calm. And for the first time since its arrival, the alien dragon no longer looked like a wild danger. It looked like a living being ready to trust. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of machines and the steady breath of the dragon. Myra's song still seemed to hang in the air even after she had stopped singing. The humans stood frozen, staring at her as though they were seeing something impossible. The giant creature, once wild with panic, now arrested with its wings lowered, its tail curved gently around its body. Myra did not step away. She knew the calm was fragile, like a thin thread holding a heavy weight. One wrong sound, one sudden movement, and the storm inside the dragon could return. She stood still, her hands open at her sides, her eyes calm and steady. The dragon's golden eyes blinked slowly, watching her. The colors across its scales shifted in gentle waves of blue and green, a sharp contrast to the violent flashes of red and silver from before. Its chest rose and fell in deeper, slower breaths. For the first time since its arrival, it seemed less like a beast trapped in fear and more like a wounded being seeking rest. Around the edges of the chamber, the crew began to whisper. "How did she do that?" one voice asked. "She just sang," another replied, disbelief heavy in their tone. "Is that even possible? Can it really understand her?" The commander remained silent, his sharp eyes locked on Myra. He had argued against her methods, had demanded sedation, but now he was faced with something undeniable. The dragon had listened. The evidence was before him, calm and clear. Myra ignored the whispers. She took a slow step closer, her movements gentle, careful not to startle the creature. The dragon's eyes followed her but did not narrow or flash. It gave a low rumble from its chest, not a growl, but a sound of acknowledgement, as if testing the air with its voice. Myra smiled softly and answered with a hum. A single note, held steady. Her voice was quiet but clear, carrying across the chamber with ease. The dragon tilted its head slightly, its ears flicking toward the sound. Its scales rippled with faint light, responding to the rhythm of her tone. She continued to hum, letting the notes rise and fall like the sound of flowing water. There were no words, only melody. The crew watched in awe as the dragon slowly lowered its massive head to the floor, its golden eyes glowing softly. The tremors in its body faded, replaced by a stillness that filled the room with quiet peace. The dragon's chest vibrated, and then it made a sound that surprised everyone. A low, deep hum rolled out of its throat, matching the rhythm of Myra's voice. It was not perfect, not shaped like human music, but it was steady and strong. The sound blended with her hum, creating a harmony that filled the chamber. Gasps rose from the crew. No one had expected this. The dragon was answering her, not with words, but with sound. Myra's heart swelled. She felt the vibration of its voice through the floor, through the air, through her chest. It was powerful, ancient, and full of emotion. She did not stop. She continued to hum, letting her voice rise gently, guiding the creature into calm. The golden eyes softened, half closing in a state of quiet focus. The dragon's scales glowed with soft blues and greens, shimmering in patterns that pulsed with the rhythm of their shared song. Its tail curled more loosely now, its claws resting without tension. For a few long minutes, the only sounds were the human caretaker and the alien dragon, two beings from different worlds, creating music together in a language older than speech. Some of the crew lowered their weapons completely. Others stepped back in wonder, realizing that what they were witnessing was not danger, but connection. One of the younger technicians whispered, "It is singing with her." Another shook his head in disbelief. "I never thought I would see this." Even the commander, usually stern and unshaken, let out a slow breath. He could not deny what his eyes saw. Humanity had reached an alien heart not with machines or force, but with song. Myra felt warmth in her chest as she sang. She knew the dragon was still frightened deep inside, but in this moment it was choosing to listen rather than fight. That choice mattered more than anything. It meant there was trust, even if it was only the beginning of trust. The song grew softer, fading into silence. Myra slowly lowered her voice, letting the final note drift into the air. The dragon's hum continued for a moment longer, then faded as well. Its golden eyes closed halfway, and it let out a deep, steady breath. The tension in the room lifted, like a storm passing and leaving clear skies behind. Myra stood quietly, her hands folded in front of her. She did not need to speak. The silence itself carried meaning. The dragon had accepted her presence. The commander finally stepped forward, his voice low but filled with wonder. "I cannot believe what I just saw. You have done what no one else could." Myra shook her head. "It is not about what I have done. It is about what it chose to hear. This dragon does not need fear or force. It needs understanding." The crew nodded slowly, their earlier doubts melting into respect. They could see now that Myra's answer had worked. It was not strength of weapons or power of machines that had calmed the creature. It was something deeply human, something simple yet profound. The dragon shifted slightly, curling itself into a resting position. Its breathing remained steady, its body calm. For the first time since it had been brought aboard, it looked at peace. Myra stepped back slowly, giving the creature space. She knew this was only the first step. Trust was not built in a single moment. But the first notes had been shared, and that was enough to open a path forward. In the silence that followed, everyone in the chamber felt the weight of what had just happened. Humanity had spoken across the gulf of species, not with words, but with song. And the alien dragon had answered. The chamber no longer shook with fear. Where once there had been the roar of panic, there was now the quiet rhythm of calm breathing. The alien dragon lay on the floor, its body curled in a more relaxed shape, its golden eyes half closed. The colors across its scales glowed softly in waves of blue and green, moving with the same slow rhythm as Myra's breath. The humans stood around the edges of the chamber, still holding their tools and weapons, but most had lowered them. They were no longer staring at a wild, untamed force. They were witnessing something they could hardly understand, a connection forming between human and alien. Myra remained near the dragon, her body calm, her voice silent for now. She had given it the comfort of her song, and it had answered with its own sound. That alone was more than she had hoped for. Yet she knew the moment was fragile. Fear could return at any time. She needed to keep the connection alive, to show the dragon that it was not alone in this strange place. Slowly, she sat down on the floor, her movements gentle and steady. The dragon's eyes opened wider for a moment, watching her closely, then softened again when it saw she meant no harm. Its tail shifted slightly, curling closer around its body, but it did not move away. Myra began to hum once more, the same melody as before, soft and simple. The notes rose and fell like gentle waves. She let her eyes close halfway, showing the creature that she was calm, that there was no threat. The sound filled the chamber again, weaving through the air. The dragon rumbled in response, its chest vibrating with a deep tone. This time, however, it was different. The sound was steadier, less uncertain. It was as if the creature had chosen to join her, to match her rhythm. The harmony of their voices filled the room, human and alien weaving together into one shared song. The crew listened in silence. Some of them felt the hairs on their arms rise. Others felt warmth spread through their chests. Even without words, the sound carried meaning. It spoke of peace, of comfort, of trust forming where fear had ruled. The commander, standing with arms crossed, finally spoke in a low voice. "This is beyond anything we have seen. We came prepared to fight a monster, but instead we are hearing music." One of the technicians, eyes wide with wonder, whispered, "Maybe it does not want to fight. Maybe it only wanted to be heard." Myra kept singing, her voice rising gently, guiding the rhythm. She noticed how the dragon's breathing matched her own, slow and even. Its scales glowed brighter with each note, shimmering like water under sunlight. Its golden eyes closed halfway again, not in fear, but in a calm state of rest. For a moment, the entire chamber felt like another world. The cold metal walls, the humming machines, the sharp lights, all of it faded into the background. What mattered now was the shared sound between two beings who had nothing in common but the desire for peace. Myra felt her throat grow dry from the effort, but she did not stop. She knew the song was their bridge. Without it, the dragon might fall back into panic. She thought of her childhood on Earth, when her grandmother had taught her lullabies to calm storms of fear. She remembered the nights when even silence seemed heavy, and how a single melody could bring comfort. Now she carried that memory across the stars, offering it to a creature that had never known such sounds. The dragon shifted its head closer, its nose nearly touching the floor in front of her. The golden eyes opened again, staring directly into hers. Myra did not look away. She met its gaze with steady calm, continuing the melody. Then, with a deep, vibrating rumble, the dragon added its voice again. This time it was louder, richer, carrying strength instead of fear. The sound filled the chamber, blending with Myra's song in a harmony that seemed to echo far beyond the walls. Some of the humans gasped. A few even smiled, their earlier fear replaced by wonder. For the first time, they saw not a terrifying alien beast, but a partner sharing a moment of trust. The commander's stern expression softened as he watched. "We may have just witnessed the first true understanding between our species and theirs," he murmured. Myra's song slowly came to a close, her voice fading into silence. The dragon's rumble continued for a moment longer, then quieted as well. Its head rested on the floor, close to her, its breathing steady and slow. The glow of its scales dimmed into soft patterns, calm and balanced. Myra placed her hand gently on the floor near its head, not touching it but close enough for the dragon to see the gesture. "You are safe," she whispered softly. The dragon gave a final low hum, as if answering her. The room stayed quiet, filled only with the soft sound of its breathing. The crew lowered their weapons fully now, their fear replaced with respect. They knew they had seen something rare, something that could not be explained by charts or numbers. Myra looked around at them and said gently, "This is not just healing. This is trust. We must protect it." The crew nodded slowly, understanding the weight of her words. The dragon closed its eyes fully at last, resting in true calm. Its body no longer trembled, its wings no longer pressed against the walls. For the first time since its arrival, it slept in peace. And so, in that quiet chamber, surrounded by humans and machines, a bond had been formed. It was not built by force, nor by science, but by the simple act of song. The chamber was quiet. The hum of the machines was soft, and the bright white lights reflected off the polished metal floors. Myra sat near the dragon, her eyes soft, watching it rest. The alien creature's golden eyes were half closed, its chest rising and falling with a slow, steady rhythm. The glow of its scales pulsed gently in shades of blue and green. The panic that had once filled the room seemed like a memory fading into the distance. The other humans stood in small groups around the edges, still amazed. Some whispered to each other in disbelief, others simply stared, not wanting to disturb the fragile calm. They all understood that the moment they were witnessing was rare and precious. It was not just a dragon that had survived a storm, it was a creature learning to trust humans. Myra knew the journey was not over. Trust, once fragile, needed to be strengthened. She wanted to show the dragon that its new environment was safe, that humans were not enemies, and that it could find comfort even far from its home world. She began humming softly again, a simple, soothing melody. The dragon stirred slightly at the sound, lifting its head a little to face her. The golden eyes glimmered in the soft light. This time, it was not a look of fear or confusion, but of curiosity. Its tail moved slowly, brushing across the floor instead of thrashing. Its wings shifted gently, folding more naturally against its body. Myra placed one hand on the floor, just a few inches from the dragon's massive snout, showing she meant no harm. The dragon lowered its head closer to the sound, its nostrils flaring as it sniffed the air around her. The soft vibration of her hum seemed to reassure it, drawing it closer without force. The dragon let out a low, deep rumble, a sound that mingled with Myra's humming. It was richer and stronger than before, steady and confident. The harmony created a rhythm that filled the room, almost like a heartbeat shared between the two beings. Myra smiled. This was the first real sign that the dragon was beginning to trust her. The humans around the chamber were silent, watching with wide eyes. Even the commander, who had once insisted on sedation, now nodded slightly. He realized that what Myra had done was far more effective than any machine or weapon could have been. She had reached the dragon's heart. Myra continued her gentle hum, letting her voice rise and fall with the dragon's rumbles. Slowly, the creature shifted its weight closer to her, resting one massive claw near her knees. The scales brushed lightly against the floor, and the room seemed warmer somehow. The dragon's golden eyes locked with hers, and for the first time, Myra felt a deep connection. She felt that the creature understood she was not a threat. The dragon then did something remarkable. It lifted its head fully, eyes focusing directly on Myra, and produced a long, vibrating sound that matched the melody she had been singing. It was not a human song, and it was not a machine. It was its own voice, shaped by trust and curiosity. Together, their voices created a harmony that filled every corner of the chamber. One of the technicians whispered, "It is responding to her as if they are talking." "Yes," Myra said softly, "this is communication, a connection built on trust and understanding." The dragon's tail moved in slow circles now, and its wings relaxed fully. The creature was no longer tense or anxious. Myra could feel the vibration of its chest, steady and calm. She placed her hand lightly on the floor again, letting the dragon feel her presence without pressure. The dragon leaned just slightly toward her, as if to feel the comfort of her closeness. For a long moment, the chamber was filled only with the shared sound of human and alien voices. The other humans stayed back, careful not to disturb the fragile bond being built. No one dared to speak, no one dared to move. They understood that trust was forming right before their eyes, and that any interruption could break it. The commander finally broke the silence. "I have seen many things in my life, but nothing like this," he said quietly. "We prepared for danger, but what we are witnessing is something far greater." Myra nodded, her eyes never leaving the dragon. "Strength is not always measured in force," she said. "Sometimes, the greatest strength is understanding another being, showing them compassion, and helping them feel safe." The dragon shifted slightly, lowering its head closer to Myra's hand, letting her presence be known without fear. Its scales glimmered softly, and its golden eyes closed slowly, resting. The room was quiet, filled with calm energy instead of fear. Myra smiled gently. She understood that the bond they had built in these few hours would grow stronger with time. The dragon was learning to trust humans, and humans were learning that patience, kindness, and understanding could achieve what fear and force never could. As the creature rested, Myra hummed once more, softly and slowly. The dragon responded with a low rumble, almost like a purr, and its wings relaxed fully. Around them, the humans felt the weight of the moment. They had witnessed the forging of trust between two very different species, and they understood the importance of what they had seen. In that chamber, calm and still, human and alien shared something rare. It was not just the end of fear. It was the beginning of understanding. Trust had been forged, strong and steady, like a bridge connecting two worlds. The dragon rested its head on the floor fully now, breathing calmly, while Myra stayed close, humming quietly. The bond between them was clear. Fear had been replaced by trust, and trust was the foundation of a new friendship that might change both of their worlds. The chamber was calm, bathed in the soft glow of the alien dragon's scales. The hum of machines and the distant sound of the station's engines were almost soothing now. Myra sat close to the dragon, her voice silent but her presence steady. The creature's golden eyes were half closed, and its massive body rested easily on the floor. Where panic and fear had once dominated, there was now peace. The other humans in the chamber moved slowly, giving space to the bond that had formed. No one spoke loudly. No one touched the dragon. They had learned that patience was as important as care, and that trust could not be rushed. For hours, they had watched Myra communicate through song, guiding the dragon from fear to calm. Now, they witnessed the deeper lesson: understanding could bridge even the widest gap between worlds. Myra's eyes softened as she looked at the dragon. It had taken hours for it to calm, but the trust had been earned. Its breathing was slow, steady, and even. Its wings rested fully against its sides, no longer pressed against walls in panic. Its tail was relaxed, curling naturally around its body. She reached out her hand slowly, letting it hover just above its head without touching. The dragon lifted its head slightly, golden eyes meeting hers fully. For the first time, its gaze seemed free of fear or confusion. It was calm, but more than that, it seemed curious, aware, and connected. Myra hummed softly, a final gentle note, and the dragon responded with a low, vibrating sound from deep within its chest. The harmony filled the chamber, warm and peaceful. The humans watched in awe. They realized that this was more than healing. This was a moment of understanding. A human had reached the heart of an alien creature without weapons, without machines, without force, only with patience, song, and kindness. The commander stepped forward, his expression a mix of awe and respect. "I came here expecting danger," he said quietly, "but I have never seen such strength in understanding. This is humanity at its best." Myra smiled softly. "It is not about strength in the usual sense," she said. "It is about compassion. It is about patience. It is about showing another being that it is safe to trust." The dragon shifted slightly, resting its massive head on the floor closer to her. It gave a soft, vibrating hum, almost as if it understood her words, almost as if it was thanking her in its own language. Myra reached out, lightly brushing the air above its scales, letting it feel her presence without fear. The rest of the crew took a careful step closer, realizing the dragon no longer posed a threat. Some of them smiled quietly, amazed at what they had witnessed. A bond had been formed not by dominance, not by technology, but by patience and care. Myra knew that this trust was fragile and needed nurturing. She continued to hum softly, letting the melody fill the chamber like a gentle river. The dragon's hum answered her, richer and stronger now, a sound that carried warmth and calm. Together, they created a harmony that seemed to echo beyond the room, beyond the station, as if announcing that two very different species could find peace and understanding. Hours passed, and the station's crew began to document what they had witnessed. They knew this story would inspire other stations and explorers. Humanity's approach to alien life was not only scientific, it was compassionate. The dragon had shown them that strength could be found in understanding, not in fear or force. Myra looked around at the humans, then back at the dragon. She realized that this moment was more than just calming a single creature. It was a lesson for everyone, that kindness, patience, and empathy could reach across worlds. That even the most anxious heart could find peace when met with care. The dragon gave a final, long hum, vibrating gently against the floor. Its eyes closed fully now, resting in trust. Myra placed her hand near its head, not to touch, but to show her continued presence. The room was filled with calm energy, a shared understanding that was stronger than any fear. The commander nodded, finally breaking the silence. "We will remember this. This will change how we approach life beyond our world. Humanity's true strength is here." Myra smiled softly, looking at the dragon. "It is not about power," she said quietly. "It is about heart. Understanding. Connection." The dragon shifted slightly, almost like a gentle nod, acknowledging her words in its own way. For the first time, it rested fully, free of panic and fear, aware that it had found safety and care among humans. Outside the chamber, the stars of the distant planet shone brightly through the station's observation windows. Myra and the dragon remained in quiet harmony, showing that even across the vastness of space, trust could be formed. The story of this day would travel far, across stations, ships, and worlds. It would tell of a human caretaker who had calmed an alien dragon not with force or technology, but with patience, song, and the courage to reach out with kindness. In that quiet chamber, two beings from different worlds had discovered a truth stronger than fear. They had discovered that compassion could bridge the greatest distances, and understanding could forge bonds that might change the future of life among the stars. The dragon lay in peace, and Myra sat beside it, both of them quiet, both of them knowing that trust had been forged, and a new understanding had begun.